the committee also said that prison counterparts, meaning all of those other folks like police and other instances that have to work with a prison, mention a good working relationship with a prison. And the committee says those are signs of improvement. And that is good to mention and good to hear. Also, it was said, all in all, the committee sees that inside and outside the prison is buzzing with activities. And many, together with the committee, have been waiting for this a long time. One can also note that administrative, mean bestuurlijk, so mean the ministers on governmental level, is being administrative of that attention is being given to this organization, and that is essential for the success of the improvement of the prison. The committee has noted with much approval the growing cooperation between the directors of the prison in the Caribbean part of the kingdom. Very proud of that, but it will not be fair of me not to also mention one or two of the concerns that the committee still has, because we are not there yet. We are far from being there. The committee mentioned their disappointment, for instance, in that the function books are not completed. The committee states in the past, the committee was promised several times by ministers of justice that the function books would soon be formalized. It must be noted, however, that mid-year 2017, there still have been no function books established. However, the present minister has promised that the police function books will no longer be adjusted to the organizational changes, but that we will proceed with what is there now and make whatever changes need to be made later. So on that point, the committee, understandably so, remains still very critical and would want us to do more there. And there was also a point with the automation. A lot of stuff that is being done now at the prison is being done manually, the administration, etc. That too we have been working on. During the tenure of Minister Dennis Richardson, investment was made in an administrative system, and we have engaged in finding out exactly why this is not being used and what is pending with it. It is a very good system, and we intend to get it back going, and that would take care of that problem. So all in all, I want to thank and at the same time congratulate, and by no means am I trying to say that the job is done. There's still a lot of work to be done throughout the ministry, but it shows that we are getting there, and that work that we are doing is being recognized by the Progress Committee, who has been very, very, very critical of us for a very long time. On another note, I met with representatives of the cruise line. As you know, I mentioned a few weeks ago that meetings were held with the representative of the mega yachts, and it all has to do with the immigration rules and regulations pertaining to their cruise. There are special arrangements for seamen that would apply, and how these arrangements can be used in a flexible manner without jeopardizing the national security of the country. In the meeting held, representative of SEL Maduro, Intermar, and SC and Marine Services were present, and I think it was a very positive meeting. And I'm looking forward to hearing from them as a follow-up some of the main issues that they are encountering, which they would like to see addressed, and I promise that we would have a follow-up meeting on that. My colleague, Minister Emmanuel, mentioned about the immigration controls and the police traffic controls that took place. And he's correct, it will continue. And especially the immigration controls. One of the controls at a business in the Maho area, and I purposely will call the name. I think it was already mentioned. It is Sky Beach Restaurant. And I'm calling the name because, you know, I come from the labor thing, and in the ILO, you cannot get fines or what have you, but they have something that they call blame and shame. And I believe all employers should be ashamed of themselves for having people working illegally, depriving them of medical insurance, depriving them of having their children to be able to attend schools, and the damage that this causes. It's not just a matter of taking jobs from locals. The people who are working in that condition, and not because they cannot get permits, but simply because permits are not requested for them. Okay? And I think those employers, more than a fine, should be ashamed of themselves. And I will, in all of the going forward controls, I will mention the name of the businesses that have this practice. There's one business, in one business, there were 6 people working. That's almost the whole staff. It is a bar, a restaurant. So I would believe that the functions were waiters and waitresses. I don't think those are such specialized functions that we cannot find people working here. Besides that, the income that is deprived from by the government, that all of us in this room, when we work, we have to pay taxes. Taxes are withheld. And that's how we all contribute to this economy. So I know there will be those who will be shouting and saying by having immigration controls, we are hampering the economy. I think we are more hampering the economy by having people taking part in the economy that others are paying for and not contributing to that economy. And therefore, the immigration controls will continue, and not only will it be so that the workers involved would have to leave the island, but the employers would also be tackled in that sense, and I would be mentioning their name. Thanks.
Thank you, Deputy Prime Minister Raphael Bosman, for your opening remarks. If you have just joined us, you are watching the live Council of Ministers press briefing. Thank you for joining us. We now go over to the question and answer session. The floor is now open for questions from the media. Bibi Hardshaw, SMN News, you have the floor.
Thank you, Marsha. Good morning, ministers. Minister Jacob, can you tell me if the draft law on territory education has been finalized? Territory education, if that draft law has been finalized, and if it was adopted by the Council of Ministers?
No. The process for that, it was started, but it is nowhere near completion as yet. It is in the process, but I can't specify at this point exactly where it is. It's not ready yet for the Council of Ministers nor to go to Parliament. I will look up the exact status of it and send it to you in writing, but at this point I don't have the exact location of where the draft is.
Thank you, Bibi, for that question. BCN TV, Lyndon Brown.
Minister Bosman, question. There's still an ongoing unsolved problem at Oyster Pond. Do you, as Minister, do you have any information on that problem? And how soon it might come to an end?
I guess you're referring to the border disputes? Okay, that process is being dealt with, and specifically by the Honorable Prime Minister. The discussions are on a kingdom level between France and the Kingdom of the Netherlands. And yes, we are encountering some problem, as was mentioned by the Prime Minister, in the area, in the lagoon, in the pond area, and at the restaurant. And I can't tell you how long that would be ongoing, because it's all related to the border dispute that is ongoing. But it has the serious attention of the government of the Dutch side of St. Maarten.
Thank you, Mr. Brown, for your question. Seymour Journal, Wendell
Good morning, ministers. My question is directed to Minister Emmanuel. Minister, you seem to be highlighting the amount of days that there wasn't any fire on the dump. And my question is this your way of addressing waste management on the island? And if no, what are you doing to adequately address waste management?
Okay, if it's my way to address waste management by not having fires on the dump, fires on the dump was an occurring event, if I should call it, or use that word, a couple of months ago, or reoccurring constantly. And there were a number of complaints and voices, and everyone in the community would make mention about the smoke and the harm that it's causing and the damaging effect throughout the neighborhoods. And when I make mention of it, it's just to remind the media themselves that are not covering it right now, that there haven't been fires for a very long time. Because when there is a fire, it is covered all over, whether it's on the media, whether it's on the radio program. It doesn't matter which avenue or which outlet there is. We hear the alarming news about it and what the government is doing about it and why this can be solved and the dump and all sort of things you would hear. But now that there's no fires for such a long time, no one is covering it or no one has anything to say about it. So to use a term as to solving waste management, I don't really understand the direction of the question, but no, it's not. It's not a way of solving waste management at all.
What are you doing?
Well, there's a number of things that we are doing to solve the problem. Like for one, I've made mention earlier, a couple of months ago, that we have signed an MOU with a waste-to-energy company. And in the coming days or weeks, they will be having a discussion with GEBE to finally tackle the mining and the remitting of the landfill. And by doing that, garbage that we know it now simply would not be done or would not be disposed of in that manner anymore. So garbage will not be disposed on the landfill anymore, but it will be disposed in a facility that will have it separated. But what we are doing right now, before this process takes place, like for example, I should have mentioned that earlier, because you still see people putting on the side of the road mattresses, you still see them putting fridges and stoves, and those things are called white material. If you go to the landfill now, we have sort of sectioned off areas where you put those white material, where you would put concrete material, where you would put old steel, old cars. We have section off areas. You know how it was a couple of weeks ago right there on Swaliga Road when basically cars and white material, old fridges and stoves, microwaves was overflowing onto the main road. That also have been taken care of, and no one mentions that anymore. But the complaints was every day and every day and every day. We have solved that problem by telling everyone and making it known on the landfill where it should be disposed of. So I would say that we have come a long way in terms of tackling or mitigating or trying to solve the immediate effects or problems that we have been facing with our garbage situation. But again, you know, it's not a problem or it's not a solution that's going to be had one day. It is something that's going to have over term or over some time. And we all need to come to the understanding or have the mindset or the change of mindset that the way that we dispose of our garbage or the way we view garbage, we can't do it so anymore.
Thank you, Mr. Moore, for your question. Bibi Hatshaw, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marsha. Minister Jacob, I asked you about that draft law to come to this question. USM have managed to get at least two of their programs, namely business and hospitality, accredited by the UK. But in order for them to hold that accreditation, government would have to put a lot more financing, up to at least 3 million guilders, to finance the institution, like all other countries within the kingdom that have chosen to finance their education institution. Now that you don't have that law in place, how do you plan to give USM the much needed finance so that they can hold the accreditation they managed to secure after so many years?
I did figure where you were going with the question, Bibi. As you know, as soon as I leave here, as a matter of fact, in the next 5 minutes, I go across to USM to be officially updated on their new status, on the fact of the matter in terms of their accreditation, as well as some other plans that they have. As a matter of fact, we've been meeting with USM and know a lot of their intentions. We knew where they were, and of course, we applaud that, and of course, I'll do that when we have it officially. From the ministry's point of view, we all know the situation with the budget. Budget 217 is established, 2018 has already been sent up. Increases in subsidy to any institution has to be requested. And so once that is done and processed and within the realms of our limitations, we will do what we have to do. Of course, when the budget gets to Parliament, we can always lobby with Parliament to make the necessary increases and changes, and they have in the past always tried to do that. But if you're going to increase your payments to Peter, you usually have to rob Paul. So it will be then up to, this is the reality, unless we can ascertain the higher amounts that we are hearing about, but which I'm understanding we cannot even count on in terms of being able to spend, even though we've ascertained that the year has gone pretty well, and we have collected more than we've anticipated to collect. But as you know, our budget, and specifically the budget of education, culture, youth, and sport, has already shortfalls. We have shortfalls in several areas which would fall exactly within that budget post where schools get subsidies. We already have to figure out where we're going to take from to be able to cover our obligations where school busing, where subsidies are concerned. We're doing our best to cut the cost where it's been unnecessary. But this is the reality of the situation that I now have to deal with. When you're on the outside looking in, you can expect immediate gratification. But knowing the accountability and all of the steps and processes that we have to take in approving budgets, in improving and increasing budgets, it is a process. So while I applaud, and I'm very happy that USM has gotten to this point, government collaborates also with USM to make sure that they are viable. We issue study financing to students who would prefer to leave the country. And we tell them that they must start at USM once the education is provided here. And there we have agreements with several universities in the United States which accept the associate degrees of USM. And many of our students, the credits, you know, they have an associate's most of the time, and the credits associated with that are totally transferred to several universities where our children do a 2-on-2, and they graduate top of the classes at those universities in the U.S. So USM is something we want to continue as an institution. We want to continue to grow. The process of approving laws in St. Martin is ridiculously long. The lack of law and legal expertise for the necessary to happen is an issue we're also dealing with, and you'll hear more about that with our coming law school as well. And so we're doing all we can with what we have, Bibi, and we'll see how we can increase that funding once the request comes in. I cannot make a promise at this point, but know that it is a priority for this government to finalize the tertiary law as well as to continue to help USM to grow.
Thank you, Bibi, for that question. Lyndon, do you have a question?
Minister Boseman, the prison. I like your attitude. It's a good pattern where you congratulate people that are making development in their capacity. You are highlighting Mr. Carty and his group at the prison. Of course, I'm not playing down. Of course, they just went there shortly. But there was people there before. And I believe that you will continue with this kind of pattern to thank the people who was there before. And where... Yeah, that's the question about the prison. You know, highlighting and is a form of congratulating the people who are doing great and who have done great at the prison.
Okay. First, thank you for the words. It is it is my philosophy that none of us can do anything alone. Also, the things to get the backing to be able to do what has been done already, I had to go to the Council of Ministers and had to get, as Minister Jacobs just mentioned, you have a limited amount of funds, and when you take from one area, you know, another person or another area will not get. As far as the prison and the individuals that are working in the prison, one of the things that was not said during the highlighting, there were a number of people, a lot of workers at the prison who were out on sick leave for a long time. A lot of those employees have returned to work and are on the job. And like I said, it is everyone. It is everyone who participates and contribute to the improvement. It's true, Mr. Cartier and Mr. Williams cannot do it alone. I would congratulate them on behalf of their team, or for their whole team, the people who contribute to them. It's a teamwork that we all have to go through and participate in order to get the results that we want. So I don't know if that is what you wanted. The question was based on that, but within the ministry, whether it is police, whoever, we work as a team. And because we understand that no one person can get things done.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Before we proceed, Minister Emmanuel has to leave for a prior engagement. Any other questions for the minister? No? Okay. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Marcia. Minister Boseman, can you tell us what's the way forward with the AFPAC team? I do know that this was in discussion in Parliament, but what's the way forward? Would this team be abundant, or it will continue at some point? Tell us what's the way forward.
No, I think I mentioned that on different occasions. The team was established last year, okay, and all of the approvals, etc., for the team to take place was done last year, and the people were identified who would be on the team from the different organizations, and they were actually going to start the actual operations when that was announced some months ago, if I'm not mistaken. We all know what happened. There was grave concern as to how this team would operate, what the intentions were, etc. Those concerns were voiced by Parliament. It is not a decision of Parliament whether the team continue or not. However, Parliament represents the people. And if Parliament has concern or need clarity on anything that the government does, that is Parliament's job. Parliament is there to hold us, the ministers, accountable for what we do. So Parliament wanted to get more information and more clarity on the AFPAC team, and as such has invited me to Parliament to give that information, and that's a process that we are in. My position is that as long as that process is still ongoing, the team will not operate as a team, because then it would not show that I'm taking Parliament serious, and I take Parliament very serious because Parliament represents the people. So the situation is that we are in the process of informing Parliament, and after Parliament has been informed and indicate what they believe, then it would be on my end then to decide what would happen. But at this stage, the process is that we are still in the process of clarifying and informing Parliament on the situation.